In the hush of a gray autumn morning, a single bark shattered the ordinary.
Let's go, partner.
Madison Hayes
Let's
froze
move.
mid-step, her
Good boy,
hand
stay
tightening
close.
on the leash. Duke, her shadow, her survivor, stood rigid, ears pricked toward distant black smoke, rising like a warning. She had sworn to stop running into fires. Yet something deeper than duty whispered, "Not today, not yet." Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from. And if this story touches your heart, please subscribe for more. The late autumn air carried a chill through the quiet streets of the suburb, leaves skittering across sidewalks under a gray sky heavy with the promise of rain. Madison Hayes walked slowly, her boots scraping softly against the pavement. Duke at her side, matching her pace without pull or haste. Madison Hayes was 35, a woman shaped by 12 years in the fire service. Tall and athletic, about 5'8", with short dark brown hair pulled into a practical ponytail, light tanned skin marked by faint scars from old burns, strong shoulders, and arms that spoke of steady labor. She wore the navy long-sleeve station uniform shirt with shoulder patches, dark cargo pants, and heavy fire-resistant boots even on her day off. The familiar weight felt like armor, though lately it pressed heavier on her joints. Her eyes, warm brown, held a quiet weariness, the kind that comes from too many nights wondering if tomorrow would bring another call she might not walk away from. Inside, she carried the ache of loss, her husband gone 3 years now in a structural collapse during a warehouse fire, and the constant pull of Riley, her 12-year-old daughter, who needed more than hurried goodbyes and promises to be careful. Duke, the German shepherd, 5 or 6 years old, moved with the calm assurance of a creature who had seen grief and stayed. Black and tan saddle coat, shiny and well-groomed, muscular frame about 25 inches at the shoulder, erect ears always tuned to her mood. He wore only a sturdy black leather collar with his name tag, nothing more needed. His intelligent brown eyes watched her constantly, not demanding, just present. When she paused to rub her aching knee, he sat beside her, pressing his flank gently against her leg, a silent reminder that he carried part of the load too. Riley waited at home most days after school, slender and fair with dirty blonde hair in a loose ponytail, blue eyes that still searched for her father in every room. She wore oversized hoodies and jeans, sneakers scuffed from running with Duke in the yard. The girl had learned early that love could vanish in smoke, yet she clung to the routines. Homework at the kitchen table, Duke sprawled at her feet, Madison coming through the door, smelling of diesel and sweat. In the quiet evenings, Riley would lean against her mother on the couch, whispering questions about the job, and Madison would answer carefully, hiding the tremor in her voice. The child understood more than she let on. She knew the nights Madison sat alone on the porch, staring at nothing, Duke curled beside her chair like a living blanket. 3 years earlier, after the funeral, the house had felt hollow. Madison remembered the first night she could not sleep, rain tapping the roof, the silence inside louder than any siren. Duke had come then, the dog her husband had pulled from a burning kennel months before the accident. The shepherd had been young, scared, ribs showing under singed fur. Her husband had carried him out, wrapped him in his own jacket, brought him home to heal. Now Duke was the one who healed. He lay across her lap that night, heavy and warm, licking the salt from her fingers as tears fell. In the dim light of the bedroom lamp, Madison had whispered to him, "You're all that's left of him, aren't you?" Duke had only sighed, resting his head on her chest, breath steady against her heartbeat. From then on, he slept at the foot of her bed, rose with her before dawn, rode in the truck to the station when she let him. He taught Riley patience, how to brush his coat slowly, how to wait for a command, and he taught Madison endurance. Through him, the family held together, fragile but unbroken. Lately, the ache in her knees had grown sharper, a reminder that the body keeps score of every ladder climbed, every hose dragged. Madison had begun reading job postings for fire safety inspector positions. Desk work, regular hours, no more running into buildings. She wanted evenings at home, dinners with Riley, walks without wondering if this shift would be the last. Yet doubt lingered. Leaving the line felt like leaving part of herself, The part that still believed she could save someone if she just moved fast enough. That Saturday morning, the sky was low and dull. Madison clipped Duke's leash, stepped outside. The park was empty, paths damp from overnight mist. They walked in companionable silence, her hand loose on the lead, his ears flicking at distant sounds. Then Duke stopped. His body stiffened, head lifted, nose working the air. A low growl built in his throat, then exploded into sharp, urgent barks. Madison followed his gaze. Across the street, 2 blocks away, black smoke poured from the upper floors of an apartment building, thick and angry against the gray. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, too far. Duke looked up at her, eyes steady, urgent. Madison felt the old rhythm return, the quickening pulse, the clarity that came before action. She unclipped the leash. Duke stayed close, waiting. She took a breath, nodded once to the dog who had never left her side. Smoke rose in thick black coils against the gray afternoon, carrying the sharp, acrid bite of burning plastic and wood. The street had gone quiet except for distant sirens and the low roar from the building itself, as though the fire breathed. Madison ran without thinking, boots pounding pavement, Duke matching her stride, his barks sharp and rhythmic like a heartbeat. She felt the old pull in her chest, the one that said, "Go now, before it's too late." Her lungs already remembered the taste of smoke from years past. Duke stayed close, ears flat, tail low, but steady. He barked at the gathering crowd, not angry, just insistent, carving a clear path so no one stepped too near the heat. People moved back, eyes wide, phones raised. Madison reached the side of the building, spotted the fire escape ladder hanging too high. A green dumpster sat against the wall. She braced her shoulder, pushed. Metal groaned. Duke circled below, watching her every move, brown eyes locked upward. Camila Ortiz appeared at the third-floor window, 38, dark hair disheveled, warm olive skin streaked with soot, eyes wide with terror above the sill. She wore a simple gray sweater and jeans, sleeves rolled, as though she had been resting on a quiet Saturday. Her voice cracked through the roar. "Help! Please!" Madison shouted back once, calm as she could manage, then turned to the task. No gear, no mask, just the clothes on her back and the dog who refused to leave her. She climbed the dumpster, jumped for the ladder. Pain shot through her shoulders as fingers closed on hot metal. Duke below paced, a low whine mixing with his barks, urging her on. She reached the window ledge. Glass shattered under her elbow, sharp, bright sound, and a shard fell. Duke twisted aside, but the edge caught his foreleg, a thin red line blooming through black and tan fur. He yelped once, short and startled, then looked up again, ears forward, barking harder as if to say, "Keep going." Madison froze for a breath. Her heart lurched, the same fear she felt the night her husband didn't come home. Duke limped a step, then stood firm, eyes steady on hers. In that second she saw not just the dog, but the promise he had kept every day since. "I stay." She swallowed the knot in her throat, climbed through the broken frame. Heat slammed her like a wall. Smoke burned her eyes, her throat. She dropped low, shirt pulled over her mouth, moved by feel more than sight. The hallway beyond the apartment door glowed orange, 15 feet of flame. She thought of Riley waiting at home, of Duke, bleeding below, of the woman inside who might never see her son again. One step. Another. The heat singed her sleeves, her hair. She kicked the door open. Camila lay on the floor, still, chest barely rising. Madison lifted her, dead weight but light with panic, and turned back. The return was slower, legs heavy, vision blurring at the edges. She reached the window, lowered Camila to the fire escape, then followed, step by careful step, cradling the woman against her chest. When her boots hit ground, the world tilted. Sirens were close now. Hands took Camila from her. Paramedics in yellow jackets. Oxygen mask. Blanket over Madison's shoulders. Captain Ellis appeared, graying beard, lined face under his helmet, voice rough but kind. "You're off duty, Hayes. No gear, no backup. And the damn dog." He glanced at Duke, who had limped forward, licking Madison's hand, blood smearing her fingers. He shouldn't have been that close. Madison nodded, too spent to argue. She knelt, checked the cut on Duke's leg, shallow, already clotting. He leaned into her, breath warm on her neck. The captain sighed. You saved her. But next time, wait for us. She met his eyes. I couldn't. Later, at home, the house was dark except for the porch light. Rain had started, soft taps on the roof. Madison sat on the edge of her bed, still in soot-streaked clothes, staring at nothing. Riley slept down the hall, unaware. The nightmare came fast. Flames, her husband's voice calling from inside, then silence. She woke gasping, tears hot on her cheeks. Duke was there before she could reach for the lamp. He climbed onto the bed, heavy paws careful, pressed his head to her chest. His tongue found the salt on her face, slow and gentle. She wrapped her arms around his neck, buried her face in his fur. Smoke, blood, dog. He stayed until her breathing slowed, until the shaking stopped. In the quiet, she whispered, We're done running in, aren't we? Duke sighed, a deep, contented sound. She felt the decision settle, not as defeat, but as mercy, for Riley, for Duke, for the part of her that still wanted to live. She closed her eyes. The rain kept falling. Duke's heartbeat against hers was steady, unbroken. The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and faint coffee, fluorescent lights humming overhead like distant bees. Rain streaked the windows in slow silver lines, turning the afternoon gray into something softer, almost forgiving. Madison sat on the edge of the examination bed, sleeves rolled up, small bandages taped over the burns on her forearms. The doctor had come and gone, mild smoke inhalation, nothing that wouldn't heal with rest. Her throat still scratched when she swallowed, but the real ache sat deeper, in the chest where memories crowded close. She wore the same soot-streaked navy shirt from the fire, cargo pants stiff with dried mud, boots unlaced now. Her short, dark hair clung damply to her neck. Duke lay at her feet in the hallway, just outside the curtain, bandaged forelegs stretched out, black and tan coat, dull under the harsh light. He had refused to leave her side even when the nurse tried to lead him to a waiting area. His head rested on his paws, brown eyes fixed on the gap in the curtain, ears twitching at every footstep. When she reached down to stroke his head, he lifted it slowly, tongue flicking once across her knuckles. Quiet, steady, the same way he had done 3 years ago when the house felt empty. A nurse parted the curtain, soft voice. She's awake. You can go in now. Madison stood. Duke rose with her, limping slightly but determined. The nurse glanced at the dog, then at Madison, and nodded once. No argument. They walked the short distance to room 312, the linoleum cool underfoot, the rain a steady patter outside. Camilla Ortiz lay propped against pillows, 38, dark hair fanned across the white case, warm olive skin still smudged with faint soot at the hairline. Her eyes, dark brown and clear now, found Madison the moment the door opened. She wore a pale hospital gown, sleeves loose on slender arms, an oxygen tube resting under her nose. Her voice came low, hoarse from smoke, but steady. You came back. Madison stepped closer, Duke at her heel. Camilla's gaze dropped to the dog. Tears welled suddenly, spilling over. He licked my hand, down there, when I couldn't breathe. I felt it. She reached out. Duke moved forward carefully, placed his head on the bed edge. Camilla's fingers sank into the thick fur behind his ears. A sob caught in her throat. Thank you, both of you. Madison stood silent a moment, watching the woman's hand tremble against Duke's coat. She felt something loosen inside her own chest, a knot she hadn't named. They talked quietly. Camilla told her about Vanguard Solutions, the vice president title that sounded important but meant long hours away from her son Mateo, 10 years old and waiting at his grandmother's house right now. She spoke of the temporary apartment, the renovation back home, how she had been napping when the smoke woke her. Her words carried no self-pity, only a gentle wonder that she was still here. She reached for the bedside table, fingers closing around a small card. This is me, she said, pressing it into Madison's palm. If you ever need anything, a reference, a conversation, anything, call. And tell me about your girl, about him. She nodded at Duke. Madison looked down at the card, then at the dog who had never asked for thanks. She told Camilla about Riley, about the way the girl still checked the front door every night Madison worked late. About Duke, how her husband had carried him out of a fire years ago, how the shepherd had stayed when everything else left. "He's the reason I could run in today," she said softly. "He never leaves." Camilla listened, eyes shining. "Then he's the second hero in that story." The room held the quiet between them, rain tapping glass, Duke's slow breathing the only other sound. Madison felt the weight of the day settle, not as burden, but as something shared. She thought of the flames, the cut on Duke's leg, the moment she had almost turned back. She thought of her husband's voice in old dreams, fading now, replaced by this new quiet certainty. Camilla reached out again, squeezed Madison's hand once. "You didn't have to come back in here, but you did. That matters." Madison nodded, throat tight. She looked at Duke, who met her gaze with the same steady brown eyes that had watched her through every dark night. In them she saw not just loyalty, but forgiveness, for the risks she took, for the fears she carried, for the life she was finally ready to change. She slipped the card into her pocket. The rain kept falling outside, softer now. Duke leaned against her leg, warm and solid. She believed, for the first time in a long while, that some promises could be kept without running into fire. 3 weeks had passed, and the city wore the pale light of early winter, windows reflecting bare branches against a sky the color of old steel. Inside the Vanguard Solutions building, the lobby smelled of polished wood and fresh coffee, a quiet hum of elevators and distant voices. Madison arrived early, suit jacket pressed, dark slacks straight, the same sturdy boots traded for low black heels that felt foreign after years of fire-resistant soles. Her short hair was neat, face clean of soot, but the faint lines around her eyes told their own story. She carried the card Camilla had given her, creased now from being handled too often. The receptionist, a young woman with a polite smile, directed her to the executive floor. Madison rode the elevator alone, watching the numbers climb, feeling the familiar knot in her stomach. She had applied for this job before the fire, before the smoke, before Duke's quiet insistence. Now it felt different, like stepping into a room she had already entered once in a dream. The conference room was bright, floor-to-ceiling windows, letting in cold light. A long table, chairs aligned, a pitcher of water sweating on a tray. Madison sat, hands folded, reviewing notes she barely needed. The door opened. Camilla stepped in, 38, poised in a tailored navy blazer over a white silk blouse, hair pulled back smoothly, olive skin glowing under the fluorescence. Her eyes met Madison's and softened immediately. "Mr. Hayes—" "No, Madison, I had no idea." She smiled, small and genuine. "Please, sit." Madison stood halfway, then settled again. Camilla took the chair across from her, folder open. "Your application came through weeks ago. I reviewed it after everything. Your record speaks for itself. 12 years, certifications, recommendations. You'd have been strong without what happened." She paused. "But I won't pretend it doesn't matter. You ran into fire for a stranger. And Duke, he found it first, stayed through it all, even hurt. That tells me more than any resume." Madison felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I want this on merit, not obligation." Camilla nodded. "Then let's do it properly." The questions came steadily. Safety protocols, handling pushback from management, building culture in a company of thousands. Madison answered from memory and heart. Lessons learned in burning rooms, the cost of shortcuts, the quiet pride in sending people home whole. Then the CEO entered, Richard Harlan, late 50s, silver hair cropped short, beard trimmed close, eyes sharp but tired behind rimless glasses. He wore a charcoal suit, tie loosened slightly, the look of a man who had built something large and carried its weight. His voice was low, measured. "One question, Miss Hayes. Why leave the line?" Madison looked at her hands, then at him. "I love the job. It's who I've been. But I have Riley, 12 now, and Duke. They're what's left after my husband didn't come home from his last call. Every time I go in now, I see their faces waiting. I can't keep asking them to wonder if I'll walk back out." She thought of the nightmares, the way Duke's weight on the bed had steadied her breathing. "I want to protect people still, just in a way that lets me stay." Camilla leaned forward, voice quiet. "That fire changed me too. I was running on empty, 70-hour weeks, missing Mateo's bedtime stories. After you carried me out, after Duke licked my hand like he knew I was scared, I saw how fragile it all is. I started leaving at 5. We eat together now. We talk." She looked at Madison with something like wonder. "Your dog reminded me what loyalty looks like. Not the kind we chase in titles, but the kind that stays. You both taught me to hold what matters." Madison felt tears prick unbidden. She thought of Duke at home, probably curled by the door, ears up for her key. Of Riley's quiet questions about the job. Of the man who had saved Duke once, and how that small act had rippled forward to this room. The silence stretched, warm and full. Richard cleared his throat. "We'd like to offer you the position." Madison exhaled, a slow release. She nodded once. "I accept." Camilla smiled, eyes shining. Madison stood, shook hands, felt the solidness of the moment settle in her bones. Outside the window, the winter light held steady. She pictured Duke waiting, tail thumping softly against the floor. For the first time in years, the future felt not like a risk, but like a gift she could finally receive. She walked to the elevator with a lightness she hadn't known she still carried. Months slipped by like pages in an old book, the kind you read slowly because you don't want the story to end. The Vanguard building stood tall against spring skies now, windows catching sunlight that felt warmer, more forgiving than the winter light of that first interview. Madison moved through her new days with a quiet rhythm. She wore simple blouses and slacks most mornings, the Navy Fire Department patches long, replaced by a company badge that said Vice President of Safety and Culture. Her office overlooked the city, desk neat except for a framed photo of Riley laughing with Duke in the yard. She built the safety program piece by piece. Training sessions, clear checklists, open doors for anyone to speak up. Employees noticed the change. They spoke of her not as the new boss, but as someone who had been there, who understood the cost of a single mistake. Often she brought Duke. The shepherd patted the hallways on quiet paws, black and tan coat gleaming, bandaged leg long-healed into a faint white scar. He sat beside her chair during meetings, head resting on her knee, brown eyes calm and watchful. Staff smiled when he passed. Some knelt to scratch his ears. He became their quiet mascot, a living reminder that protection wasn't just rules on paper, it was presence, loyalty, the choice to stay. Camilla and Madison grew close in the way women do when life has shown them the same sharp edges. Camilla, still poised in her tailored suits, now left the office at 5 most days. She wore softer colors sometimes, sage green blazers, light scarves, small signs of a life reclaimed. They met for coffee in the break room, talked about the children, about the nights they still woke to old fears. One Saturday they gathered at Camilla's renovated house, backyard wide and green, a small pool shimmering under the sun. Riley and Mateo ran barefoot across the grass, voices bright with laughter. Duke trotted between them, tail sweeping low arcs. The adults sat on the patio, wood warm under bare feet, scent of grilled burgers lingering in the air. Madison watched the children chase Duke in circles. Then Mateo darted too close to the pool edge, foot slipping on wet tile. Duke's head snapped up. A single sharp bark cut the air, urgent, not angry. He lunged forward, shoulder against the boy's leg, nudging him back from the drop. Mateo stumbled safely onto grass, eyes wide. The yard went still for a breath. Camilla rose quickly, knelt beside her son, arms around him. Riley ran over, hugging Duke's neck. Madison felt tears rise, soft and unhurried. She looked at the dog who had once bled for her, who now guarded a child not his own. In that moment she understood. Loyalty wasn't earned once. It was given every day, quietly without asking for thanks. The company marked a full year without serious injury. Balloons in the atrium, applause that echoed off glass walls. Richard Harlan stood at the podium, voice steady as he announced the record. He called Madison forward. She accepted the promotion, Vice President of Safety and Culture, with a simple nod. Later in her office, Camilla closed the door behind her. "I've been thinking," she said, "about Duke, about what he means. I want to fund a program, training service dogs for first responders, for families like ours. Not just here, but out in the community. He started this. Let's keep it going." Madison looked at her friend, then down at Duke, curled on the rug, breathing slow and even. She felt the weight of the past lift, not gone, but carried differently now. She thought of her husband's last call, of the fire that took him and gave them Duke, of the smoke she had run through, of the woman she had carried, of the children laughing outside. Everything connected, small acts rippling outward like stones in still water. That evening, Madison drove home with the windows down, spring air cool on her face. Duke sat in the passenger seat, head out, tongue lolling. At the house, Riley waited on the porch, homework forgotten. They walked inside together, girl, woman, dog. The kitchen light spilled warm across the floor. Madison knelt, cupped Duke's face in her hands. His eyes met hers, steady as ever. She whispered, "You never left, not once." He leaned into her touch, a low sigh escaping. She felt the truth settle deep. One moment of courage, one choice to act, had carried them all forward. Not to erase the scars, but to make room for healing, for laughter, for days that ended with everyone safe under the same roof. She rose, turned off the porch light. The night was quiet. Duke padded to his bed by the door, circled once, lay down. Madison stood a moment longer, listening to his even breathing, to Riley humming softly upstairs. She believed now, fully, that love, quiet, stubborn, unwavering, could outlast any fire. As the years gather like quiet shadows, many of us sit alone with aching joints, fading memories, and the silence that illness brings. Loneliness can feel heavier than any storm, yet stories like Madison's remind us, one act of kindness, one loyal friend, human or with 4 paws, can light the darkest room. You are never truly alone. Love still finds a way. Take heart. Reach out today. Share this tale with someone who needs it. Comment your own quiet moment of courage. Subscribe for more stories of hope. May the Lord wrap you in peace, ease your pain, and send comfort to your door. You matter, always.